In this video, we're going to be pulling down the van engine, my mechanic service van that is. It's got a Chevy Gen 5 Ecotech engine in it that's been ticking since I bought it. And no troubleshooting, folks. This is going to be a complete teardown video until we find out what the heck is going on. I suspect it's valve train related, which means we have to pull the cylinder heads off to get to the cam and the lifters. That's what we're going to be doing, which is easier said than done in a van application, but are we going to be able to find out what is causing our problem here? Well, you're just going to have to wait and find out. Hey guys, Josh from the Update channel, and we are, once again, right next to my van. Now my van, of course, folks, I made a video on not too long ago where I pulled the valve covers off. I was running, I was looking for a noise, a ticking. Got the oil filter open. Minimal metal, normal amounts of wear that I saw. Can't find what's wrong. So I've been running it now for about a month and put several hundred more miles on it. And the ticking is still there. Has it gotten worse? Not really. Is it getting better? No. So what am I going to do? Well, folks, the ticking is driving me insane. I am in constant fear that whatever the noise is going to cause a catastrophic failure and be 100 miles from the house and a valve's going to drop or something like that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull the cylinder heads. I'm not going to be running in and checking for noises or anything. I'm just going to drain the coolant, pull the intake, pull the exhaust, pull the cylinder heads off. I am sick of the noise. Folks, I've worked on engines before. This one not particularly, but in general, the noise I hear is valve related. So let's stop talking and get to work. Okay, so we're underneath. You might be saying, why would you be underneath to pull the cylinder heads? Well, you have to drain the coolant out, obviously. I see the radiator here. What I don't see is a coolant drain anywhere. Now, obviously, I'm an idiot. See the lower radiator hose there. It goes into here, over there. And then it goes into the block. They drain the coolant, that stupid thing. I don't know if this is the right frickin' drain. There's a false drain on the front of the radiator. That was fun. So I pulled this stupid plug. Enormous thing. I was gonna pull our radiator hose that's right over the AC compressor, so I said, you know what, screw it. We're on the driver's side of the block here. Draining the coolant. 45 minutes later. Screw you, GM. So we're kind of back to where we were last time. Pull this panel off here. You pull the doghouse back off. I'm not going to pull the valve covers right away like I did last time. I'm going to pull the intake off, pull the exhaust off. No reason to pull the valve covers until you're ready to pull the head. All you're going to do is leave the engine open longer by doing that, unless you have to. But it looks like the alternator... I don't know if you'll be able to see. So I can't exactly tell. I'm going to have to pull quite a bit more stuff out of the way this time, but it looks like the alternator and possibly the power steering pump. I can't really tell with this air filter in the way. I'm going to have to pull this. I'm going to pull that. But it looks like those bolt to the head. And obviously there's serpentine belt drives, so I'll probably have to pull this stuff out of the way. It looks like the shroud, though, is two-piece. I don't know if you can see these little bolts there. But if it is, that's really good news. So the shroud, if it's two-piece, I can pull the shroud up through here. Then I can pull the fan out. Then I can pull those accessory drive units off. Be a good time to probably replace the tensioner and the belt while I'm at it. But I'll have to pull those before I pull the head, unfortunately, but it's not the end of the world. So let me get the doghouse out, and then we'll work on getting our air filter and that stuff off. Okay, we're back to where we were. Let's get this puppy off of here. At least I know how to pull the doghouse better this time. Oh, shoot. I pulled the bolts for this. I didn't pull this off. There we go. Ta-da. I'll be able to see the engine again. Oh yeah. Beautiful. Now, I'm not gonna lie, folks, looking at this, I thought for a minute maybe I should just take it to a dealer or a local mechanic who is familiar with these and have them do it, but what kind of engine mechanic would I be if I didn't even try to fix my own vehicle? I mean, I started off wanting to be an auto mechanic, and these Chevy engines are not known to be the most difficult to work on, and since obviously I recorded this video a couple days ago, I'm doing the voiceover now, but they're really not that hard to work on, actually. I mean, I was frustrated first trying to find the coolant drain, but as you'll see, a few things in here that I get unfamiliar with, but in general, they're not too hard to work on. What I'm pulling off here is basically just a cover, one of those plastic covers all manufacturers seem to want to put on their engine. It's over the intake. What I'm doing here is pulling off the air filter housing that goes into the air intake itself. Got to pull that off. Some of this job's got to be done from the front here like this, although the engine itself sits more under the cab itself, but a lot of the stuff in the front, you have to take a few bolts out that go through the power steering pump and the alternator brackets in the front to get to the head. Not only that, if we do end up needing to do a cam, we'll have to pull all this stuff out anyway. And there's a few things I wanted to check, even without like the belts, the belt tensioner, stuff like that. It's going to be easier with having all this stuff out of the way. So that's what we're doing. We're pulling this stuff out of the way so we can get access to the engine. Okay, so we got the air housing, or air filter housing off. That was actually really easy. It was just 2 bolts. Got it over here, covered it with some plastic. So, what do we got going on here? Well, you can see our... I really need to get... That's better. Okay. So this line here, looks like that goes to the PCV system breather, which you can see kind of some oil in there. You can see your throttle. And I'm not sure what the heck this box is. Some sort of frickin' vibration, air, sound thing. The thing I hate about automotive is the extra crap they add on. Doesn't really do anything, so I don't believe this box does anything but quiet down the intake. Kind of like the sound deadening that's over the intake also. Also, there's a balance valve in this thing. These are things not all engines need, folks. Yeah, I guess it's for smooth operation, but it'd be much better to just have this junk off and just design it to run as an engine should. But anyway, let's get this stuff out of the way. Got a little bit of dust getting in here, would appear. I wonder if this seal, this was not very tight when I took it off, so I'll probably change the air filter also while we have it apart, but if you look there, little traces of dust possibly getting into this engine. That will be tightened more when I put it back on there. Okay, we'll get this intake valve deal thing off of here and continue to pull this apart. Okay, so we got all that intake junk off, and yeah, it's just an air baffle type thing. There's another one on the other side. Why? Okay, so we got the upper shrouder out. That is pretty easy to get out, actually. I'm pretty happy, although I was pretty mad initially. Hold on, sorry. With how hard it was to drain the coolant, which I still don't know if I'm draining it the right... I mean, I am draining it, but I don't know where it's supposed to be drained. Upper shroud comes out. The shroud is also the radiator support, because it's awfully floppy right now. Look how thin this radiator is. I thought this was the condenser when I pulled it out. I was like, oh, it's the... What the heck? Like, if you look at the tank, look how thin this is. It's crazy thin. So what we're doing here is we're pulling this big cover. I'm not even sure what they call it. That sits above the grill here. It kind of covers up the shroud part of it. You have to pull this cover, actually, if you're going to change your headlight bulbs, which I mistakenly tried to do a couple months ago. My passenger side bulb went out. And I thought I could pull it out like most vehicles without removing it, but no, you actually have to unscrew the headlight entire assembly just to get the bulb in and out. But once you do that, which actually is not a lot of work, you can do it. Got the overflow tank here, reservoir. Still some coolant in the bottom here. I drained all the coolant out already. I drained it out through the block there in that large plug as you saw earlier. And just trying to get the rest here into the radiator so we can drain it into the drain pan. I'm going to be replacing the coolant, even though it's only 3 years old. It's quite a few miles on it, and winters up here in North Idaho can be pretty brutal. It's good to have a good coolant in your vehicle. So also coolant's cheap, and if you don't change it can cause problems. So just a good maintenance item to replace it. Do need to find out. I believe this uses deck school. I'll have to look in the owner's manual. And what I'm doing here is I'm looking at how to get the shroud out of place there. There's a few hoses and wires that run across it, but there's quite a bit of slack actually in them. And they all appear to be factory to get the shroud out of the way. I spilled a little coolant there. Just cleaning that up. So this shirt I'm wearing actually, I'm saying, if you see it, it's actually one of the first things anyone ever sent me on YouTube. I want to say it was like 2016 or 2017. He sent me a hoodie, which I still have, and a shirt. The shirt I've used, I love long sleeve shirts like this without buttons or anything. I wear them all the time. They're really good as a mechanic shirt because they keep anything off your arms and stuff, including the sun if you're working outside. So I've got a bunch like this. And yeah, thank you to whoever sent it to me. I believe he had a C13 and I'd answered some questions for him. Nice guy. And I believe he's from Pennsylvania. So there's a shroud, as you can see. Well, part of it, the upper part of the shroud separates, which is actually, I got to really give kudos to GM on that, to have a two-piece shroud like that. A single piece would have been a real pain in the butt, but this is a two-piece, so it makes it easier to come off. Now here I'm actually making a mistake. I just don't know it. I'm trying to get the fan off, but the fan bolts to this thermostatic clutch here, and you can't get the fan off unless you pull the thermostatic clutch off. That's what I'm just realizing now. What I should have did is just leave the fan bolted to the clutch. I'm going to have to pull the clutch off no matter what, which is kind of what I'm figuring right now. But in order to do that, I have to pull this ring, the shroud sealing ring here at the end where it's directly over the fan. It's actually on 3 bolts. There's 2 up top and 1 on the bottom, which I have to get to from underneath. Just writing top there so I know where it was. You can kind of see me working there underneath. I'm going to get a light on this situation here pretty soon, and then we're going to have to try and get this fan assembly off of here. Now, do I have to pull all this stuff to get the head off? Yes and no. So I have to get to the intake, which some of the bolts up front and some of the sensors are up here. Now, an experienced GM tech, maybe you can do everything from the inside, but I'm not an experienced GM tech, so I'm going to be pulling this off just to get to everything. Not only that, I suspect we're going to find a bad lifter and a bad cam or something like that, so it's going to require the head to come off. And if the head's come off, the front structure might have to come off, and in that case, we're going to have to pull this off anyway. Not only that, I've noticed not a lot of belt noise, but there is some, I don't want to say squealing, but just a lot of little weirder noises on this higher mileage vehicle. So I kind of want to check out, how's the alternator spin, how's the power steering pump spin, water pump, tensioner, idlers. So we're going to be checking those out as we go through this engine. So what I'm trying to do here is remove the fan drive. And I've always had bad luck with removing these where they bolt on directly to the pulley. I don't want to say bolt on. It's a huge nut basically. And they can be left hand or right hand thread. And sometimes it's hard to determine. And that's what I was trying to figure out here. So what I'm going to be doing is actually being a clown. So what I'm doing here is I'm trying to loosen it, thinking it's left-hand thread. But it's not left-hand thread. It's not. So yeah, I was actually tightening it there, even though I was trying to remove it. So at this point, I decided, hey, look, I'm going to stop. Maybe I can find out if this is right or left-hand thread, and then go from there. Okay, so we've got most of the front out of here. As far as the upper shroud goes, I loosened this, or took the bolts out from the thermostatic clutch to the fan. What I'm trying to do now is get the fan off of the water pump here, or the pulley, I should say, which is driven by the water pump, but anyway. I kind of did the opposite. So I generally overthink these, and it gets me in trouble, because some of these are counterclockwise, tightens them, some are clockwise, tightens them. This fan spins this way, which facing it would be counterclockwise. However, from the back would be clockwise rotation. Basically, I watch a YouTube video. If the fan blades go this way, it's right-hand rotation or right-hand thread pitch. So basically, I have to go counterclockwise. So initially, I was trying to tighten it, not loosen it, is basically a long story short. But anyway, I have to get this off before I can get all this other stuff off. Also, I don't want to pull the belt yet until I get this off because the belt's helping to hold the pulley in place. Just loosen it. Yeah, I've always had bad luck with these. I don't know why. Always, yeah. But as you can see, it is right-hand thread because I'm counterclockwise and removing it. Ah! Yeah, it probably wouldn't have been so hard if I wasn't trying to tighten it in the first place, but okay, I'm gonna put the fan back on this guy. And there's actually two belts. There's a serpent, or a, what they call a stretch belt. My buddy Dale was telling me about those. I didn't know what the heck he was talking about initially, but now I see there's no tensioner, so it literally just kind of slides over. Apparently it's a real pain in the butt. How's this puppy? Now this belt's only 3 years old, just like the engine, but a lot of miles. Short but hard life. Take a look at this puppy. I always want to know too on their belts, like what is good, you know? It's hard to say a lot of times, but I usually look for, oops, and I don't know how clear this is going to be. Serpentine belts, I look for cracking. This doesn't have any, so this belt might actually be, but yeah, I don't see any cracking. Looks to be like it's in good condition. Still see the part number 2. Would it still be a good idea to replace it? GM belt, so it's probably the original. Yeah, it's a GM 126-45868. Or I'm not exactly sure if that's the part number or if the 6PK1972 is the part number. Not sure. But anywho, put it away. So after all that, it is finally time to pull the intake, and the intake is enormous. I mean, V style intakes are usually pretty big, but if you use the diesel engines, their intakes in general are pretty tiny. Of course, on a boosted engine, it doesn't really matter how big it is because the air is getting forced in, unlike these, which are naturally aspirated. But it looks like there's, I forget if it's 6 or 8 bolts, but they basically just go straight into the head here. And then, yeah, you just pull the whole assembly off as one. I think the biggest pain is just getting it around the opening in the doghouse and then getting all these wires out of the way. Quite a few wires in this harness. And no gasket, it's actually all O-rings that seal this, so pretty cool. Well, we got her off. Well, we got the intake off, I should say. See the oil residue in the intakes here. Pretty normal with a PCV system like this. Intake is huge. I mean, you can see the runner for each. It's kind of cool looking. I mean, the designs are kind of like a high performance engine. You know, all aluminum, big intake. Pretty interesting. So it gives us quite a bit of space. So what do we got left? The mount for the power steering pump, mount for the alternator. I was going to say AC compressor, but that's way down there. Connectors for our spark plugs. And I did say coilovers previously. That's technically not true. Someone pointed that out. These are coil plugs, but a true coilover would be the coil was directly over the plug. This one does have a spark plug wire. But anyway, yeah. So we got to get this big mat deal off of here. We got to get the fuel lines off for the head, and then we have to get the injector clips undone, get the exhaust manifolds unbolted, which those are only a couple bolts, surprisingly. 4
per head. That's nice. So the intake's off, valve covers, the rocker arm's off, anything like this, grounding strap, fuel system, and then head bolts, and she's coming off. Probably about 2 more hours of work would be my guess. Okay, so we got our little cover off. You can see the fuel lines now. Pretty simple fuel system here. So we got a single fuel line in to this high pressure pump. This is super high pressure. I'm not sure what PSI they run here. If we're talking diesel PSI, if we're talking 3,000 or 4,000 PSI. Common rail on each cylinder bank. So it's like, I'm wondering if these lines are not reusable. Not sure. The injectors look like push into the head here, and then it's got little clips for each one. I'm not sure what the best way to do it is. If you try to pull the entire assembly out as one, or if you just leave the injectors in the head and then just undo the clips and leave the rail on. I'm not sure. I think I'm going to leave the rail on, take the clips or take the connectors off, take these fuel lines off, and then pull the head with the fuel lines on. That's my current plan. Working on getting the valve covers off right now, and then we're going to work on getting our exhaust manifold off. I got all these off. Yeah, so far, nothing yet. That one didn't pop. Like wasn't super tight. Let's see, there's no evidence of an exhaust leak here though. No carbon or anything. Keep going. I can't believe there's only 4 bolts. I mean, I guess it makes sense, but just 4 bolts holding this puppy on. If this was a cat, I'd have 6 because you'd have 2 for each flange, but makes sense, I guess. Yeah, still nothing weird in the rocker arm assemblies. You guys know anything about this? Apparently the rockers will wear sometimes. A lot of people said they seemed dry when it was running before. It was not spraying oil everywhere when it was running, but it was spritzing over here, so it is getting oil. I don't know how much oil these rockers need. Alright, so we're getting close. We get the exhaust manifold off here. I'm going to try and just kind of pull it back without fully pulling this flange. Just try to pull it back. These are head bolts. Gotta get those. I'm going to leave the spark plugs in. And I'm going to leave the harness on the rail here. I'm going to leave the harness on the rail. I'm going to take these fuel lines off the rail. And then we'll pull the rockers, head bolts, and I'm going to pull this side first. Should be able to see the cam there, and the lifters on this side. We'll set the head over on my bench, and maybe we'll see what's going on. Definitely gasoline in there. I'm using my flare nut wrenches. Generally try to on fuel systems. What I'm gonna do actually. Yeah, we're actually gonna, I put those nuts back on, the sealing nuts, because I'm actually going to spray down the fittings here with some brake clean. A little bit of dust and dirt on them. I just don't want any of that getting in the high pressure pump or the rails, so just going to flush that off first, then we will loosen them back up and check. Yes, super simple fuel system here, although not the easiest to get to considering it is under the intake manifold. Not sure how else they would have ran it though, really. Not really tight at all. Let's say maybe 10 foot-pounds or something. Pretty light. Light torque. Yeah. Swing. Now we're going to pull the rockers off. Very unusual for me to have a bunch of rockers that are not adjustable. It just has a retaining bolt. Wow, that's not tight at all. Not saying they're loose, just saying they're 20 foot-pounds maybe. Not a lot. The automotive guys are probably like, that's normal. I mean, this is a, what, 8mm retaining bolt for the rocker. It's like each one's on its own little pedestal. Pretty dang simple, folks. I mean, C15s, they're half-inch, not half-inch headed, but half-inch bolts. Of course, holding each one on. Well, they're a rocker assembly, so it's not one. You'll have multiple rockers on a shaft, and then the shaft obviously has multiple bolts. There's 4 main ones, and then you have some ancillary ones for the Jake housings and stuff. So this guy's kind of holding the exhaust manifold away. Let's break some of these head bolts loose. Not sure the torque sequence on these. It's probably in to out, so I'm just going to go the opposite. Dang, boy. Those are tight, although they're head bolts, so that would make sense. Looks like there's only 8 head bolts. I guess there's only 3 cylinders on each side, so not too crazy. Yeah, these bolts are surprisingly tight. I was looking up the torque procedure. It was something like 65 foot-pounds, then 90 degrees additional, and then another 50 degrees or something like that. So it's a 3-step procedure, but it's a ton of torque at the end. I guess you're mostly stretching the bolt more than you're applying torque to it, but I mean, you are applying torque to get it to stretch. The exhaust manifold's kind of being a pain here. What I ended up doing was putting a ratchet strap around it and kind of just moving it a couple inches out of the way. You'll see it in the next shot. All right, we got all the head bolts out here. See? You might hear some coolant flowing. It's still leaking a little bit. Don't know how much this head weighs. It's not 0, but it's a 3-cylinder aluminum head, so probably not 800 pounds. Not many other options here to get this out of here. Basically have to grab it, pick it up, and then take it out. I can't go that way. It's way too far in the cylinder here, or in the under the cab. So let's see here. It's definitely off. Pull tell if the head gasket's stuck or what the frick is stuck here. Feels like the head gasket. What I can tell. Don't see anything hanging us up. I think it's just the head gasket. This head's ridiculously light. One hand, I can pretty much pick it up. Ah! Gotcha! Huzzah! Man, this head is light. I think I've picked up valve covers heavier than this thing. Ah, God, what a pain in the butt. Alright. Heads off! Woo! We got coolant in here. I guess just that was not drained, which is weird because I drained the block. I figured this side of the head would drain, but I guess not. So let's get our head gasket off. And it looks like these lifter trays are just plastic. It looks like they bolt on and kind of hold the lifter in. So we'll pull this, we'll pull these lifters out, see what it looks like. So yeah, so we got the head gasket off. Still some coolant in the block here. I'll have to evac that out. But you can see there's, obviously the cylinder wall is a pressed in steel sleeve. But yeah, it's all cast aluminum. So these are interesting trays. I'm gonna have to pull these out and see what our lifters look like. So let me take the bolts off and see if we can't do that. So the rear tray here looks like it holds 4. Is it 10? Yep. 4 lifters. And then the forward tray holds 2. Okay. Well, we have certainly gone pretty far in this puppy. All right, lifters hopefully coming out. We got one. One of the, this would be, I think, intake on, I don't know what cylinder that is. So really all that holds it in is it's slotted. You see that? So it's slotted, this is slotted. And that's all that keeps them from turning? That's crazy. I mean, if that broke, they would just rotate. Well, that one seems okay. Need to keep these together, if possible. That one's not coming out. What is? Looks okay. Oh, wrong hole. Ha ha ha. Okay. I was thinking I'd be able to see the other side also, but that's not the case. Cam, from what I can see, looks okay. Come on, buddy. Getting irritating. They're really hard to grab. They're just kind of right there. I don't know if I can't get that one in. The block's pretty clean. I don't see any buildup of gunk really. I don't know how I'm going to grab this one. Let me use these hose pliers. Maybe we can grab it. Perhaps not the best for a lifter. But it won't come out. Mostly came out. Okay. Ooh. That one's bad. Look at that lifter. I don't know if you can see it. That lifter's no good, man. That means the cam's probably shot on that one. Yeah, that lifter's toast. The roller's really bad. It's not really loose as in like the bushing failed. But that cam journal's got to be shot on that one. Okay, look at the cam. Oh yeah, that cam's junk. That's what I was fearful of. But that's why I pulled it down. I knew something was going on. Let me try to get this puppy out of here. Oh. Yeah. Hey, this is not. I thought this would grab it really well. Oh, that one's actually fine. No clicky. That one's okay. Okay. How about these guys? Oh, okay. Once again. So yeah, bad cam. Not too bad. Let me get a magnet. I think a magnet might be able to grab that puppy. Oh yeah, buddy. Okay, that doesn't look too bad. You can tell. Yeah. Not too shabby. We got at least one bad cam lobe there. So if you can't tell, wipe this puppy off. Look at the frickin' pitting on this roller. Really not good. I'll zoom in on the cam here in a second. Okay, so that was the rearmost lifter that scored like that. You can see the inside's pretty clean, but if you look down in the bore, see that this is a normal cam lobe. I'm not sure how well it'll be illuminated. You see it's smooth. Looks pretty good. This one though, do you see the pitting? Especially right there. Oh yeah. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna rotate the engine around and see if we can't get it. I bet a big chunk of that cam lobe is missing. Okay, so we got the lifters out. I rotated the engine around, and yeah, this one, I don't know how well we're gonna be able to film it. It's such a small bore. But if you look down there, try to focus, there we go. It's pitted there on the bottom, slightly. But more, the cam has a ridge right in the middle of the lobe, and this is where the lifted part is. So if you're riding, I don't know if you'll be able to see this. Probably not. I'm just gonna try and show you that there's a ridge on the lobe itself. Oh, focus, focus. Okay. So the center section here is somewhat smooth, but as you get toward the edge of the lobe, it's like U-shaped. So I think what's happening is the ticking is the lifter's riding in that center, and sometimes it moves its way up here, and then it'll pop down, and then you get the, which is what I kept hearing. I kept hearing it! And that is the first part of the series. So yeah, it looks like we found it. Now, are the other lifters damaged on the other side of the engine? How bad is the cam? How hard it's going to be to replace? Well, this is going to be a multiple parts series, folks. I just ordered the parts, and we're going to be waiting on the parts before they get here. I'm sure I will further disassemble, make a couple more videos on getting the van back to being non-ticking me off. And once we get it back together, we'll be back to working on cats. So hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching.